Hey everyone, I would like to introduce you to my new environment that I've created this week called the Giant's Cove. I'm really excited to show you guys this one. I really feel like I stepped it up in speed and quality than the last one. So I really hope you come to enjoy this and are excited to see what I've made. Hope you all enjoy. So this week's format, I'm gonna mix it up a bit until I find a format I enjoy. So bear with me on these videos. So I am gonna talk for the first half of these, just going along to all my favorite spots and talking about the parts that I enjoy the most, and some of the design philosophy that went into it, and just my general thoughts as well about designing these environments in Unreal Engine and how concept work has really changed for me. So if you want to just see a uninterrupted version with me not talking and just some really nice music playing, that will be in the second half of the video where I'll do a full run through of the game. So if you want to see that, that's where you guys can go and see it. All good. So this week I wanted to design this idea that I had from my first one about having a giant's graveyard. I really liked the idea of creating things that are massive next to human proportions, and so making giant skulls and axes is very fitting and appropriate for my liking. But also this week I wanted to make a more linear design, mainly because it's a lot easier for me to make these videos and present them if it's kind of a collective one chain of ideas, where I found my previous one was a lot of winding roads. This week, as well, as you can see, I worked on one big focal point for the scene. I do think that's a big part of concept design, and as we can see here, it's the giant axe. I wanted to incorporate that in its kind of design of drawing you in, pushing you forward, and almost encouraging you to push on and see what comes next. I really love this opening scene of when you're heading towards the village ahead of us. You really get to see the scale of the mountains on the side here. Gigantic mountains are some of my favorite things in the whole world environments. And so as much as we have these like this cliffside and the mountains up there, this mountain is just in awe to me, the way it like touches the clouds above. And so I love the different perspective changes and the way that the player can view something just from the way they're walking. So if you're down here, you're like, oh, that's a pretty interesting mountain, and you scale it up and you start to see more, and that presentation works really well. Also, two notes to take from this as a design is I actually have a bone on the mountain at the bottom there, if you can see it. It's not a rock, it's a bone, and it's just a nice little detail to complement the skull on the side here. Also, as you can see, the village is up ahead, but the light that we're seeing here is going to hit certain points and really highlight them. And as we can see up ahead, there's a lot of light shining and almost drawing us in from this dark, gloomy side that we're in now. And that was one of my focus for all of the key sections, was to ensure that that was being present in all the areas. Also, as a fun note, I actually added this rain, and I definitely think it helps with the mood, especially with the idea of creating interactive like concept art or just more visualized concept art. Mood is everything, and I really wanted to give that a showing. We can see as we start to get here, the narrative of the area is that there was a giant that came, and the people of this area say that he split the mountains apart with his axes. And there was a old, like a very royal family that used to live here that was decimated in the attack against the giant war against the war against the giant that they did win. But now a new populace has kind of developed, and it's once again working with that key theme of life continues in these areas. So we can see over here there's like ruins, but as we start to come over, there's more of like a more modern town. I actually wanted to create a flow with the town as well. I love kind of developing my own ideas and starting to incorporate like more fresh ideas and creating more narrative. It's the whole point of it, right? With environmental design is narrative. It's just as narrative focused as character design. So as we see, we've got these nice houses along here. This is more of the nicer district of this town. So even though it's small, still working on splitting it up. There's a little detail over there which we'll touch on in a sec. I just wanted to come along and show that I am getting better at it, but it's still something I feel very weak on, is the Bethesda junk ideology that stuff should just be lying everywhere. There should be more junk for everyone. Because people own stuff and it's really messy. And it's something I wish I just incorporated more. It's very time consuming, so until I find a more efficient method, something I do really need to work on. So we're still in this town. I was really happy with it. I liked the structure. It's got a circular structure. And now we can see the beautiful highlight of this town. That one of his bones is in the center of this town. And if you guys can see, this is the only fenced area in the town. And this is what I would have placed as like the descendant of the royal family that believes that they own this bone and no one else in the town owns, has any fences or really locks off their property from one another, but these guys greedily close off the bone for themselves and their own property, and they're right in the center of town. So we come along and check it out. It is huge, and it's meant to really give you scale to what it is. Now, one of the comments I've actually had was that the skull is quite huge for the axe. Now, there is a reasoning for that is what I'll be justifying as a one-handed axe. So really pushing in the size of how big this giant must have been. And it's almost unimaginable how a bunch of people were able to beat this thing, and that's kind of the majesty of it. So now we're in the rougher part of town. So we had the nicer area over there. And this is where, say, new inhabitants have moved in. And we have some, smaller, poorer houses, rougher street, less stuff. And kind of breaking it up into two different sections. And a cool little narrative I would have designed for this area would have been to have, so I've got a nicer house at the end, so two different kind of factions live in this city, between the more traditional people that lived here originally and the new folks that have moved in. And kind of interesting how towns and people adapt. And so I have like a more, interesting dynamic. The thing I love about the skull here in this is just the magic of how it's just always there, and it's so menacing, and you want to find out more. I think environmentally, games sometimes let themselves down when they have an opportunity to ask NPCs questions. And creating more interesting narrative stuff going on is awesome. We see that's the cliffs where we came from, the giant mountain up there. That is absolutely huge, by the way. Like, it is a very, very big mountain. So we come back down, and we're going to be proceeding down the route that's presented. So I really love this sense of presentation, that this area is so wet and gloomy, and I love creating natural pathways. Even though it's somewhat, I've done the mud in a way that is meant to look like it's been used and you're encouraged to go down it. Natural pathways, just in the way that these cliffs work, these small sized cliffs, and the way your character is kind of driven down, you're very intrigued to proceed, and that's kind of the point. Now take note for this will come later, that I intended this to be quite a dark section for you to be walking through. Fun little detail that I added was I added mud textures and water textures towards the closer end of the rocks. See more on this side, so the rain is like catching on the rock and then running down and soaking, where this side it would more soak into the earth itself, where on here it's actually dripping off the rock, and hence the water would build up more. So of course I had to add more ruins in. I love ruins. And it's just a cool way of, once you start getting away from the city, I wanted to isolate the ruins themselves and to make them feel, sunken into the earth and kind of more standalone. We, as we see, have stone paths on the floor. We actually have like a stone chair dug into the earth. And I like creating, like, even along pathways, little moments of information that you're more intrigued towards. And Also, what I like about this is you can actually like look back and see the rocks, the cave, sorry, that you came from. And that's kind of interesting. I wanted always there to be a perspective of something in the distance that you could relate to. It's always nice to see maybe where you came from, or where the pathing for that was, and it just makes it more interesting. So even though we have this nice ruin structure, we can see off into the cliffs where we came from. So I did lightly touch on this before, but one of the things I wanted to focus on is whenever there's something interesting, to have this thick light coming through, cutting through the fog, so that you feel like even though you're in darkness now, there's something really interesting across to the side. And I intentionally made the cliff really visible from here because I wanted you to almost be entranced looking this way, kind of looking up being like, wow, it's crazy. This is so interesting. And maybe you'll cut across and be like, oh man. And then just on the corner you can see, as we turn, it catches your eye and you realize that you're at the axe. I love that point where you are sometimes hidden from the fact of how close you are to getting to the main focal point of the area that you're going to. And something that really catches this area as well is I love the openness of it. It's intimidating, it's broad, it's meant to make you feel like a bit isolated and a bit of something's hidden here. So obviously as we get closer to the axe, we start to really grasp the scale. When you're far away, it's easy to forget how far you've come and how big something really is. And so as we get here, we can see how truly large this thing is. We see lots of weapons along the floor. I love the sense of narrative writing. Narrative storytelling, sorry. And it starts to get more desolate and ruins are everywhere, and we kind of can feel the almost impossibility of this circumstance. Look at all these weapons represent a fallen person, and they've almost just left it here in memoriam. And I love this idea that just narratively from the visual element, you're left questioning how did this even work? How could this have even happened? And I think that's kind of the magic of it. Something that makes you want to dig in more. And once again, we just get a really good perspective look at the axe here. As we proceed off into the sunlight. And this is something that's really cool. We get to see the skull more. And something you may not have noticed originally, that you can only just barely see from the crater cave that you come from, is we're actually hitting water. Which is one of the narrative pieces I wanted to incorporate, that the giants split the earth to let the sea in. So the reason there was a castle here before, so close to the water, which this would not be land that you could build a castle on so close to the water, because it's so damp, that he split it and let it in. Hence why the castle is, would be so close. So we're at the ocean. So I hope you guys really liked this one. This one was super fun to work on. I had a great time. It's always fun. As per usual, guys, just huge thank out to Unreal Engine, Brushify, for these amazing packages and everything, that allows me to create this and really work on my next step of conceptual design and environmental art. This storytelling is just unimaginable, and I'm very thankful to be here and to be doing all of this. So thank you all. And lastly, just a self-plug, if you guys want to follow me on YouTube, Instagram, all the links are down below. I will be streaming these constructions on Twitch if you guys want to view, follow me. And lastly, as I've mentioned in the previous video, work's been notoriously hard to find at the moment, so if anyone would be able to help me out at all and provide me with someone that I could get in contact with to, get back into games and start working in that, it's been a very hard mountain to climb for myself. So, but if not, no trouble. Thank you for watching. That's just enough for me, honestly. I hope you guys will now enjoy the actual full walkthrough of the map. And if you're bored of my voice, then yeah, you'll love that part. Have a good one, guys.